Hello. I thought that researching Wet n Wild would be easy. Like, it's a drugstore brand, been around for a while. There should be plenty of information on Wet n Wild, right? No. Just real quick before that though, if we are meeting for the first time, welcome. My name is Stacy. This is STACILEA Beauty. I am in my mid-40s. I love all things beauty. As I have aged, I have realized that I want to know more about the brand behind the products that I'm either using or going to be using. Therefore, the series was created. I will be doing brand deep dive videos twice a month. If that sounds interesting, I hope that you'll hit that subscribe button. For my friends who have been here before, you know that I am loving wigs. If you are new here, my hair is naturally an auburn color, but look at how fun this wig is. This is from my Temu haul, which I'll have linked up above and down below if you want to watch that next. But I am just loving this. Also, if you want to get into wigs, this is a great place to start because the price point. Anyhow, let's get into Wet n Wild. I always start on a brand's website and go to the About Me section. Usually there's a little bit more than this. This is all that was on their website. Wet n Wild has made beauty budget accessible to mass audiences since 1979. Launched in New York with lipsticks and nail polishes at 99 cents. Yep, that's all. That's all that they say. Well, I didn't want to just say that and end the video, so I did a little bit more research, and I will forewarn you, it gets a little confusing. What I found was that the founder is Stanley Aker. He started working in sales for a progressive drug company, and then they did bath and body products, and then he later went to work as an executive for Hazel Bishop. And she is known for launching long-wearing lipsticks in 1949. Let me know down below if you have ever heard of Hazel Bishop. But by 1958, Stan decided that he wanted to launch his own company. He got together with a couple of friends and they started a company called Tiara Cosmetics. And they sold the brand Cosmetically Yours, which then became Cosmetically Yours Inc. At first, they were mostly focused on eye products, and then they expanded to a full makeup line and also lashes and nails. So now he went from working for Hazel Bishop to his brand being one of their competitors. Another competitor at the time was Artmatic Cosmetics. By 1969, however, they were in some financial trouble. They filed for stock offerings in order to get more capital. And in the 70s, as sales continued to decrease, the other two business partners, Leonard and Neil, decided that they wanted to move the company to Florida. But Stan wanted to stay in New York. So there was separate divisions that broke off. And from what I could find, it really looked like Leonard and Neil didn't really have much to do with the company. You know, maybe it's just like kind of like their names were on it. And it was so weird when I was researching Wet n Wild, like vintage and putting in 1970s and stuff. 7-Eleven came up and I was like, 7-Eleven? What does that have to do with makeup? Well, in 1976, Stan started 7-Eleven Sales Inc. And he went to trademark Wet n Wild. Well, Wet n Wild had been one of the labels under Cosmetically Yours Inc. So technically, they were already owners of the trademark. But they hadn't been selling, Cosmetically Yours had not been selling and using the Wet n Wild name for quite a few years. So Stan filed a petition to get the Wet n Wild trademark canceled that was under the Cosmetically Yours, because if he canceled it successfully, then whenever anybody looked, it would say that he had the first trademark. Well, doesn't this just seem like what would happen in business? The petition went to the New York office, not the Florida office. So it went to the New York office where Stan is, and of course, then the cancellation was approved, and yes, now 7-Eleven shows that they are the first. This was in 1979, and on the trademark application, it says the first date was in March of 78. And just one thing to note now, anything that was previous that I could find said Wet and Wild. And after this, it was Wet and the letter N, Wild. So what happened to Cosmetically Yours? Well, in 1970, they had a California branch by this time. And that branch was forfeited and closed because they didn't pay their taxes. Now, if one branch didn't pay their taxes, you might be right in guessing that, yeah, the Florida, they didn't pay their taxes, or the New York office, none of them paid their taxes. The 7-Eleven Inc. lasted a couple of years. So in 1984, Stan went from having 7-Eleven Sales Inc. then to Pavilion Limited was registered. They also registered some of the Cosmetically Yours products, including the Cosmetically Yours name. So it's still like Cosmetically Yours is still being tied in to Wet n Wild because the Wet n Wild is under the Pavilion Limited name. The company was growing and Stan had to move from supposedly making all the products out of his house to buying an actual warehouse space, and went to having more than 600 employees. And in 1984 was supposed to be the first time that they had a commercial. And again, it was getting so muddy when I was trying to research this because everything around Wet n Wild, like advertising or anything and if you put in 1980s, specifically 1984, the Wet n Wild amusement park came up. And there was all kinds of things about that. So then, a year later, Stan sells Pavilion Limited to Sanders PLC, which was an investment company that was located in the UK, and it was rebranded to Pavilion International. And then by 1986, they were showing a loss, and every year following it, finally, by 1988, they were losing in the millions. So you might have guessed, yes, the company folded. So we have Pavilion International, the UK branch, folded. But Pavilion Limited was in the US, and they were still making products. And one name that I was surprised to find, because I don't remember ever hearing about this. Well, in 89, I was young. But I was very surprised that Donald and Ivana Trump, their names actually come into the picture when researching this, because in 1989, Stan filed to register Ivana Cosmetics. Ivana Trump sued Pavilion Limited for $10 million. She was saying that Donald Trump was already using the name Ivana since 1984 in different services at a restaurant, and that she was also already selling Ivana Trump perfume. The court sided with her. Pavilion dropped the trademark file, and Ivana Trump dropped the lawsuit. In 1991, Stan launched a new brand called Black Radiance. So now we have Wet n Wild and Black Radiance under the Pavilion umbrella. What I found was that he launched this in 1991. Now, on the Black Radiance website, it says that they were launched in 1993. So I couldn't get a clear answer of if he just, filed for trademark in 1991 and it took that long to actually launch it, or if the website just fails to mention that. Because it also, I feel like when you look at it, you would never, at least I would never have guessed that it was started by a team of all white men. The brand started with 68 SKUs and said it was to fit 33 different skin tones. Now in 1992, Stan decided that he wanted his company, the Pavilion International, back. So he flew to London, got involved with the bank and stuff, and Pavilion Limited, the US branch, bought back the Pavilion International outstanding shares. So now he was back to owning that. And in 1993, he wanted to launch another brand, and this was called Solo Para Ti. Hopefully I'm saying that right. But this was still under the Pavilion Limited umbrella. That brand launched with 47 SKUs of lipstick, lip liners, nail polishes, eyeshadows, and by 1995, they had 117 SKUs, and it was mostly like bright, vibrant colors. But by 1995, Stan realized that really Wet n Wild was the bread and butter of all the brands. So he decided that he really wanted to focus on that and develop that label, make a name for himself with that label. So he really focused on that and just was launching product after product in 1995, like almost a new one every month. All the products at this time retailed for 99 cents, except for a matte lipstick, which was $1.99. And this was another thing. I am loving doing these brand researches because every time so far I have found out at least one new thing about the brand. Mostly multiple things, but at least one thing that I never knew. And I did not realize that Wet n Wild actually had released some dupes. So they had a nail polish and a lipstick called Blackest Red, and this was a dupe for Chanel's Vamp. That dupe sold $1 million in less than 3 months. And remember, this is in the mid-90s, so there wasn't the online shopping thing. So 1 million units, that is insane. So I did Google to see if these colors are still available. Chanel does still sell the Vamp, and when I tried to find the Blackest Red for Wet n Wild, what came up was Red Burgundy Frost. And when I looked at that, I'll put it up on the screen, I felt like that looked the closest to the Blackest Red. So kind of interesting. I would love to know, do you have either the Chanel or the Wet n Wild? Either one of those colors, because yeah, I think it would be interesting to know how close those are. And they continued to do more dupes. I had no idea that they were in the dupe market back then. And they give themselves credit with being the first one to launch black lipsticks and black nail polishes for drugstore. Another interesting thing that Stan did was he brought out again the blue nail polish and lipstick. He had, in an article, it was quoted, he had said that he felt like that was part of the success for the brand's initial launch. And so now in the 90s, he was bringing that back out. In 1996, they also launched the Mega Wear line, and every year they launched a fantasy makers collection around Halloween, which was some more, kind of the more stranger colors and over the top kind of lashes and sequins and all that kind of, like kind of grungy style things. And we have yet another name change, or ownership change, I should say, not name change. 1997, Stan sold Pavilion to AM Cosmetics. The deal was valued at over $100 million. $100 million in 1997. Now, AM Cosmetics, remember earlier I mentioned Hazel Bishop and Aramac, which was Wet n Wild's competitors? Well, AMC Cosmetics owned both of them. However, in 1998, AMC Cosmetics was in debt by millions of dollars. They defaulted on a $6 million loan, and of course the bank got involved. There was a restructure, and then they sold to Markwins for $32 million. That was finalized in 2003. So just think about this, okay? So AMC Cosmetics bought the Pavilion, which included Wet n Wild, Black Radiance, and the Soul Latte. They bought those for $100 million. Yet they sold for $32 million, so definitely a loss. And not only were they selling those brands, they were also selling under their umbrella was the Hazel Bishop and the Aramac. So Markwins, they really got a deal when you think about it in that way. Markwins decided to get rid of the Soul Latte brand, aromatic brand. Markwins then decided that they wanted to move the Wet n Wild headquarters, because at this time it was still in New York. They wanted to move that to California, where the Markwins headquarters already were, and they moved their production to China, and that is where it remains today. So definitely some ownership changes again and again. Stan did eventually step down and was more a consultant, and then one of his sons was involved in the company, but then he resigned. So It sounds like from what I could find that none of the original members of Stan's family is involved in it. Stan did pass away at the age of 78 in March of 2008. What the brand's mission statement is, what they are focused on, is to provide good quality items for a fraction of the price you would spend on other cosmetic products. They wanted to then, and they want to now, they focus on the average person, the person who happens to be shopping at drugstores or department stores like Walmart or Target, and just they want to make it a simple, like kind of no thought process where, okay, if you're looking and this is a cheaper price point, that a woman can pick it up without even thinking about it. That's kind of like their mindset. When looking at sustainability, sourcing, fair trade, diversity, community involvement, I could not find anything like that with any statements on any of those on their website. Now here's where we get into another little interesting thing, is their cruelty-free status. On all of the Wet n Wild's, their website, their social media, everywhere, it says that they are cruelty-free, that they've always been cruelty-free, never tested on animals. Well, there's two things. We have something in 1997, and then we have a scandal in 2019. Let's first talk about 1997. There was an article in the Journal News of New York in 1997 that talked about brands finding alternatives. And right at the top there, it is stated right there in black and white that until about 1991, Wet n Wild Cosmetics tested its products on rabbits. The change to not testing on animals was because of public outcry. That was another thing that shocked me, that up until then, 1991, that they were testing. So they changed to not testing on animals. They promote themselves as cruelty-free. Everyone thinks that they're cruelty-free. Yay, they're included in all the cruelty-free, websites, the list. And then in 2019, a story breaks. May 7th, 2019, in Watson, which is a department store in mainland China, pictures emerge of a full-on Wet n Wild display stand full of Wet n Wild products. One of the blog Cruelty Free Kitty, one of her subscribers, her readers, had gotten in touch with her, sent her the picture, and she broke the story. At first, people were like, did they know? Because the brand didn't come out with any statement. So people were guessing, well, maybe they didn't know that this was being like one of their manufacturers just took it upon themselves, or did they know the whole time? Eventually, the brand came out and said that they were aware of their Chinese retailer the whole time. Now, in January of this year, there has been some announcement that some of the laws have changed over in China. And I kind of started researching this, but I definitely want to dig more into this to try to understand, because some brands now have been added back to the cruelty-free list. If you want me to share my findings on that, again, I'm not an expert on that. It's just going to be what I can research, what I can find, but I definitely want to learn more about it, how it's updated now. So now when I look at Cruelty Free Kitty's page, she has them back on the cruelty-free list. And it says that this is in response to the news in January 2023 that select brands have been able to bypass the pre-market animal testing and are no longer subject to post-market animal testing. And she has Wet n Wild on that list. Now, Ethical Elephant, she still has them marked as unclear on her list. So right now, I am going to say it is unclear. It looks as though they're back to being cruelty-free, but until I can deep dive more on that whole thing, like how are certain brands, how are they bypassing this and how are others not? Because there's only a handful of brands that say that they have bypassed this. So I definitely want to look more into that. Let me know if you know anything about that. But right now, I don't know. What would you consider Wet n Wild? I feel like I'm still going to consider them in the gray, unclear area until I can get a full confirmation. about that new law. Does that make sense? Do you agree? Or do you think I should include them as cruelty-free? Are their products vegan? Some of them are, but not all. They do have a list on their website where you can see all of their vegan products, and I will have that link to that list down below in the description box below the video. And as far as if they are clean, so this is the statement from Wet n Wild that I could find. It says that they continue to reinvent the meaning of value with high performance essentials and new innovations, infused with nourishing key ingredients and clean, cruelty-free products. But I couldn't find anything about on their website, like about any clean initiatives. However, a lot of the clean brands are paraben free. And if you look on most of the products on their website, those are listed as paraben free. There is another website that you can go to. It's EWG Skin Deep site. And that is where you can look at a specific product or a brand. They give a ranking on how clean that specific product is. So when I pulled up Wet n Wild, they did have some bad, considered bad, non-clean products, but a lot of the products were given a ranking of 3 to 4, which isn't too bad, like you can see on the chart. And then you can click on the product and you can see which item is causing that. Sometimes it can be a fragrance is, notching them down to not as clean. So you can really go in and see their products are made in China. Where can you buy Wet n Wild? Multiple places. You can purchase online at Amazon, the Wet n Wild brand website, or in-store or online at Ulta, Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, and Rite Aid. For a little bit of fun facts, again, I couldn't find too much on them, but in 2019, it is reported that they sold a black eyeliner pencil every 20 seconds. If you would like to see a video on product review, let me know that down in the description box. When I first started doing these brand deep dives, I was trying to do product reviews at the same time. I will leave the playlist listed down below, but I felt like then that was just making the videos maybe too long, but I don't know. Let me know what you think. But I thought I would go over like what categories they sell and the lowest price point to the highest in each category. Their palettes you can get from $2.98 to $19.99. In the eye category, they have primers, mascaras, single shadows, eyeliner, and brow products. That ranges from $1.19 to for a single shadow to $10.99 for a kit. For lips, they have your lipstick, gloss, balm, liner. Price points are $1.29 for a liner to $9.99 for a kit, or $5.99 for a single lip gloss. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? Actually, I'm going to pause right here and I will finish their categories and price points, but I love looking at vintage ads. Well, I couldn't find many for them, but products, I found a little bit of listings on eBay or Etsy of people selling vintage Wet n Wild. So I'm just going to insert some screenshots right here so that you can see, because I just think it's so much fun to look at it, and then we'll come back and do the price points. Isn't that awesome to see? I just love that. For face products, they have remover, primer, foundation, powder, cheeks, concealer, highlight, and contour. Price range is $1.29 for a single highlight to $12.99 if you wanted a Mega Glow palette, or $8.99 for a single product, the body bronzer. Nail polish is 99 cents to $4.29 for a single polish. They also have tools, brushes, sponges, and their cheapest is $1.19 is a liner brush, and I was surprised at this price point. $54.99 for a 10-piece professional brush set. But still, Wet n Wild, $54? No wonder it's on sale. For a single brush, the highest is $7.99. I had to switch to my phone because I'm a slacker and I didn't realize that my batteries for my camera were not charged. So to wrap up, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see some brand history on Pacifica, check out this video, or Urban Decay right here, or maybe skincare is your thing. Here is the LMS brand deep dive. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Have a good weekend.